Hi, it's Catherine from Cloudberry Flowers and welcome to this week's video all about growing ranunculus. These are one of my favourite flowers for cutting in the garden in the springtime. They come in before the roses and they're absolutely beautiful. They're cool season flowers and they'll bloom for you for about 4 to 6 weeks in the garden or in your greenhouse. If you cut them to enjoy indoors in a vase, more flowers will come from the same plant. And if you want to keep them for flowering the next year, you just let the flowers finish and then let the foliage die back, giving the corm energy for the following year. And then you can lift the corms and store them inside, ready for replanting in the autumn or the following winter. Ranunculus like good drainage in a sunny position in the garden or in a pot in your greenhouse. And today I'm going to show you how you can start them off at this time of year by soaking them, pre-sprouting them, and then potting them up. Ranunculus are just like anemones. They benefit from a bit of pre-soaking before you plant them up. So you can see here that they're quite dehydrated and dried up at the moment. And if we pop them into soak for a few hours, they're going to plump up and then they're going to sprout away a lot quicker. So what we're going to do is just fill up a bucket with a few inches of lukewarm water again. Just the same as with the anemones, and then we're going to pop these in for about 4 to 6 hours to soak and then come back and plant them up. Our ranunculus corms have been soaking for the last several hours and they're now nice and plump and ready to be put into our seed trays. And I can show you here the difference in what they look like. So here are the ones that haven't been soaked, they're just straight out the packet. And here you can see they're really nice and plumped up now they've been soaked for a few hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill a seed tray here with some compost. And if you've watched the anemone video, you'll have seen me doing this before. You just fill the bottom of it in a nice even layer for our ranunculus to sit on the top of. And the reason that we pre-sprout our ranunculus is because it gives them that bit of a head start. If you pre-sprout them, you'll get flowers a few weeks earlier than you would otherwise. So there we go, we've got a nice even layer of multi-purpose compost in the bottom of our seed tray, and I've just spread it out there, patted it down. Next thing we need to do is to water it, just to get the soil nice and moist. And our ranunculus corms are going to sit on top of this, and I'm just going to pop them on just now. And it doesn't matter which way you put them up here when you're putting them on, as long as they're spread out and not touching each other. So we've got quite a few going in here now. We've nearly filled the tray. There we go, that should do. Now what we're going to do now is just to put an even layer of compost on the top of that, just to cover them all up. Now this is the last week in January that I'm doing this, which is quite early. You can still be doing this throughout February into March. And you can also sow ranunculus corms in the autumn time. And you'll actually get better, stronger flowers if you plant them in the autumn and they have that time to put down good roots over the winter time. And they'll come away, they'll put up some foliage in the autumn and then they'll just sit dormant, putting down more roots over the winter, and then they'll shoot away in the spring fairly fast. And if the temperature dips down too much, it's below freezing, I would cover them in the garden with a bit of frost cloth if I had planted them out in the autumn. So that's us now. We've got a good layer of compost on the top there, and what I'll do with that is take it inside to a cool room and leave it there for the next couple of weeks. And I'll keep checking them. Ranunculus don't like to sit in waterlogged soil, so I'll keep it just moist and check for any rotten ones, because if they get too waterlogged they could rot away, so I would just separate those ones out. But hopefully they'll all be fine, and then they'll develop little rootlets over the next few days. And when they have got a good little root system going, we'll have a look at them and we'll plant them up. And if it was getting towards March, April time, you could put them straight out into the garden, or if it's a bit earlier, you could plant them up into pots and keep them in the greenhouse for a few weeks more, just to keep them frost free. Hi there, we're back in the greenhouse today and we're going to be potting up these ranunculus that we've been pre-sprouting for the last couple of weeks. I've actually left it a bit later than I would have liked to. It's been freezing and lots of snow and ice over the last week, and my compost had completely frozen up, so there was no way that I was potting these on then. So 3 weeks on from first putting these ranunculus into soak, and we've got quite a good tray here of ranunculus sprouted with lots of little roots and shoots ready to be planted. But let's see what we've got. Here is one that I've just taken out of the tray, and you can see it's got lots of good roots on it down here at the bottom, and it's got lots of lovely shoots here at the top as well. So just like the anemones, I'm going to take my 3-inch pots and I'm going to plant the ranunculus up in these. If it had been a little bit later in the season, if it had been into March, I would have been getting these directly outside with a bit of frost cloth over the top to protect them. Or if I pre-sprouted these in the autumn, I'd be doing the same, they'd be going straight outside. But we're having a bit of a chilly winter this year, lots of freezing temperatures, and I think they'd benefit from just a few more weeks potted on inside. So I've got my 3-inch pots. Just going to put a little bit of multi-purpose compost in the bottom like before with the anemones, just the same. And we'll do a few here just to show you. And we'll take our little ranunculus here and pop it into our pot and just put a little bit more compost on top. So the roots are going down and the shoots are coming up towards the light to grow on. And these will be absolutely fine in an unheated greenhouse now. They'll just have that little bit of protection from the freezing temperatures outside. And then in about 4 weeks' time, I'll be able to plant these out in the garden. Hopefully the weather by then will have improved a little bit and will be above freezing temperatures overnight. So why should you grow ranunculus? What's so nice about them? Well, I like them because they are really pretty spring, early summer flower, and they are good before the roses come in. You like to have a focal flower in your jam jars or your bouquets, something that's nice and a feature to look at, and these ranunculus do just that. So they come in before the roses and they give you a really nice flower. So we've talked a bit about ranunculus and what the best time of year is to plant them up. And again, I would say that autumn you're going to get your best flowers, and for the longest amount of time in the spring if you plant them up in the autumn. Pre-sprout them then and plant them out in the ground over the winter. They'll be absolutely fine, and if the temperatures do go too low, just cover them in a little bit of frost cloth or garden fleece. The reason that I am putting some ranunculus in this late stage in January and February is just to extend my season, and I would say that in Scotland this works for me because we tend to have quite cool springs, and ranunculus will do quite well for me into May. If you were maybe in the south of England or somewhere where it's a lot warmer in the springtime, then the ranunculus might not do so well. They are a cool weather plant, they don't like it when it gets too hot. So I just spread out my flowering season by doing a few in the autumn, getting them through the winter for early spring flowers, and then these ones that I am planting up just now will take over and just give me a few more ranunculus into May. And they won't flower for as long or maybe be as good, strong, big flowers, but they'll still be nice for jam jar posies and for some bouquets as well. It's nice being out in the greenhouse today. I can actually feel it quite warm in here. It's a balmy 12 degrees just now, which is a lot more than we've been having in the last couple of weeks where it's been freezing for most of the time. The snow has been great. The kids have had a great time sledging and building snowmen, and we've gone for lots of nice snowy walks with the dog. But in late February, it's definitely got to the stage now where I like to be cracking on in the garden, getting the beds cleared, the seeds sown and ready for the season coming up. Some of these ranunculus ranunculus have got a little bit more leggy than I would have liked, because they've had that extra week indoors where I really would have wanted to get them potted on and out into a cooler greenhouse. And this is an example here where one has really started to stretch, so we'll have to see how it gets on. But because of that frozen weather last week, it just wasn't possible to get them planted up and outside. They wouldn't have survived. But yes, I would say that if you have got them pre-sprouting and you can see their little shoots coming up, then crack on if your weather is good and get them planted up so that they don't reach for the sky too much like some of these. Some of them are fine, but some of them have just gone too far. This is another example of one that's really stretched indoors. It's trying to reach the light and it's just not been as good as it would have been out here in the greenhouse. This is my first year of having the greenhouse to grow anything in. I've just been using the house before now, which hasn't always been ideal. Everybody's been getting a bit fed up of me putting seed trays everywhere, and I have to say this winter it's been so cold that I've still been doing that a little bit, much to everyone's dismay. But this space is going to be really good. It's going to let me grow on things outside that I never would have been able to before. So I'll start my season off earlier and hopefully keep it going at the other end of the year too in the autumn, and putting some things under cover. If you've got a polytunnel, you would be able to put these ranunculus straight into your beds, which would be really good in your greenhouse, and grow them on under cover. But these pots will do fine for me for just now, and then we will get them outside. That's me planted up all my ranunculus now. I managed to get 31 plants out of that one tray, which is great. These are going to grow on in my cold greenhouse now. They'll be absolutely fine here. I'm going to give them a good water just now, then I'll just leave them be. If the soil dries out a bit, I'll water them again, but make sure they don't get too waterlogged. What they really need just now is some good light to get them growing into sturdy little plants. And these will get planted out in my garden in the flower patch in about 3-4 weeks time once we get into March. Once they're planted out in the flower patch, if the temperatures do dip again and go below freezing, I'll protect them with a bit of frost cloth, but otherwise they should be fine. And these are going to give me wonderful flowers in May. I hope you enjoy growing some ranunculus if you give it a go, and let me know how you get on in the comments section.